Okay, so let's have a quick recap. So yesterday we were, um, up to here, yeah, when we introduce once again balance of payment. But this time is going to be in more detail. And when we talk about balance of payment, we know that it's all about the transaction amount, okay, in your country with countries around the world. Okay, at the end you can gather all the different amounts together, and you will see whether uh, you will have a bigger income inflow or a bigger outflow. Okay, or you can say bigger cash inflow or bigger cash outflow at the end. Okay, and so in balance of payment, we focus on one account, and that is current account. And when we talk about current account, we talk about the transaction between our country and other countries. Okay, and there are four components. So do you still remember the four components in the current account? Can you quickly list them out, like four items that you have inside the current account? Yeah, trading goods, right? So they are the most basic ones, trading goods and services, right? And yeah, and don't forget about the income flow, right? Because they are also, a way of yeah, cash inflow and outflow. And yeah, and there's another very indirect one talking about current transfer, right? When we talk about current transfer, those are the money, okay, that are not because of production. Okay, the transfer of money is not because of production. Okay, it's something else. Like what you see here, the pensions, the welfare, charity taxes, right, foreign aid, etc. Okay, right, yeah. And when we talk about income flow, it's all about the comes and goes of factor incomes. Okay, right. So that's why we have four items in the current account. Okay, and don't forget the terminologies right here. Okay, so for the first two, right, when we gather all the numbers together, we have to make ourselves some conclusion, and you have like a trade deficit or a trade surplus. Okay, yeah. So when the export is higher than the import, you call that a trade surplus. And yeah, for trade deficit, when the imports are higher than the exports, then you call that a trade surplus. Okay, all right. Okay, and altogether, yeah, when you group all the numbers together, you can find a balanced figure for your current account. Okay, so here, yeah, so this is what we saw yesterday. Okay, when we group all the balances together, then we can come up with this final number. Okay, so now in the current account, we have a surplus of this amount. Okay, and then we talk about the causes of trade surplus. No, trade deficit, right? As long as we understand the concept of trade surplus, we know when M is higher than X, then you will have trade trade deficit. Trade deficit. I mean trade deficit. Okay, so yeah, so what makes a very low exports then? Okay, so we discussed about the factors which make a very low export. Okay, and that's why we have to import many goods and services from other countries. Okay, yeah, and yeah, maybe it's also because of the currency. Okay, when your currency the value is too high, okay, you will become very not competitive when you are trying to export your products. Okay, because people when they're trying to buy your products, they have to buy at a higher price. Okay, yeah, and when you have that very high value of currency, you encourage people to import goods, because when we are importing goods, it's cheaper. So we would rather import goods and services, okay, than right exporting. Okay, yeah, okay. So yesterday we before we finished the class, we watched this very short video. So this video, was about Trump talking about how they tackle trade deficit. So that is by imposing tariff, right? So you can think about this. Yeah, when we are imposing tariff on imports, okay, so the imports should be lower, right? And if you go back to the concept of trade deficit, when the import is lower, then your trade deficit should be lower as well. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we want to have a balance. Okay, we want to have a stable balance in our balance of payment. Okay? All right? In here, you can talk about, we want to have a stable current account balance. Okay? And that's why Trump had this idea by using tariffs. Okay? Tariffs. Right? Okay, trying to lower the imports, okay, the level of imports, okay. So that's the idea. And so now we can also take a look at this video, about the real cost when Trump imposed tariffs. Okay, so spend like 10 minutes to finish the video, and we can, carry on. So here, the link. Okay, so go watch it.
You want me to talk about when I come home at night and my sons ask me what I did today? I actually say, well, I had a meeting to talk about.
I have to sit down with my employees and tell them that a misguided policy is actually costing them their job.
Anything that impedes open and free worldwide trade is a concern for us.
If this continues, it can hurt global trade, and that sows the seeds for World War III.
A global trade war fueled by tariffs is threatening to upend the world's economy. The first shot fired earlier this year by President Donald Trump.
Today, I'm defending America's national security by placing tariffs on foreign imports of steel.
China resolutely opposes the unilateral and protectionist trade practices by the United States.
Let me be clear. These tariffs are totally unacceptable.
We're putting tariffs on $50 billion worth of technology and other things.
The Chinese side has to retaliate in order to protect our legitimate rights and safeguard the global free trade order.
After years of rebuilding foreign nations, we are finally rebuilding our nation, which is what we want.
I've come to the Midwest to meet Americans already feeling the effects of the trade war. I'm in the small town of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Known as the gateway to the Ozarks, it has a population of 17,000. This town, like so many others all around the country, has faced economic hardship with the downturn of the manufacturing sector. Everywhere you look, you can see remnants of what used to be. But now, a new problem. The Trump administration's tariffs have hit this community particularly hard. And as it happens, this county came out strong for Trump in the 2016 election. He won 80% of the vote. I'm headed to Mid-Continent Nail, the second largest employer here in town. This company is on the brink of extinction because of the 25% tariffs on imported steel.
You know, we take pride in what we do, and our nails are building and securing the future of everybody in the U.S.
Because Mid-Continent has relied on importing steel from Mexico, the cost of their production has skyrocketed.
Of course, initially, you never think it can be as bad as it's turned out. When the tariff went in June 1st, that immediately raised the cost of our raw materials 25%. Within 2 weeks, we lost 50% of the orders that we had on the books, and within 60 days, our business was down 70%.
More than 185 people have lost their jobs since the Trump tariffs took effect.
I mean, I personally feel responsible for every person out there, the jobs that are gone and the jobs that we currently have.
President Trump famously said, trade wars are good. What do you make of that?
I think he's very misinformed, or he's more or less selling propaganda to people.
Cassandra, how long have you worked here?
Right at 2 years.
And your fiance works here too?
Yes. My fiance's been here almost 12 years. So this is really all he knows. This is kind of, you know, to change jobs now would be just very, very hard for him.
And how many kids do you have?
Together we have 10. They range from 21 to 5.
Did you vote for President Trump?
Yes.
These tariffs that have been brought about by the Trump administration, what has that done to kind of your faith in the administration?
I haven't lost my faith in him. I haven't. There's a lot of positive things he's done, but I think it would benefit for him to come to places like this and see, you know, what we do and how we do it every day. And I think maybe that would affect his thinking about these tariffs.
What's your biggest concern right now?
Coming in here not having a job. Yeah, my youngest daughter, she's 6 now. She's had 2 open heart surgeries, a balloon, and a stent.
And did you vote for President Trump?
Yes, but there's a lot of things that he's doing now that I don't agree with.
If you could go back and cast your vote again, would you still vote for President Trump?
I still would.
Even though you might lose your job?
Yeah.
If you could rewind, would you still vote for President Trump?
Knowing what I know now, no.
The company is asking the Trump administration for a special exclusion, which would exempt Mid-Continent from the tariffs that have decimated their business.
All it takes is a signature to sign our 24 exclusions, and our 500 jobs in Poplar Bluff, Missouri are you know, they're saved.
There have been some benefits to the steel tariffs, like the revival of a once-shuttered steel plant in Granite City, Illinois, bringing back what the company estimates are 800 jobs to this steel town.
And we are once again pouring new American steel into the spine of our country.
If you look at Granite City, Illinois, there were hundreds of jobs that have now been gained because the steel plant there was opened up. What would you say about that?
I would say it's very short term. So unless they have, you know, amazing innovation plans to turn the steel mill into something much more, it's not gonna, you know, hold a candle to all the other steel mills around the world.
What are some of the things that have happened in the past that can inform how this could end and where we are right now?
One of the most glaring examples that really mirror what's happening today was the time right before World War II. When the Smoot-Hawley tariff was passed, yes, initially you had a bump up in jobs and, you know, it seemed like, oh, America's great again.
We groped, we struggled, we found the way to better times.
And that pretty much lasted a year, and then it fell apart.
Discouragement, fear, failure.
And of course, we had World War II that followed the economic collapse. And I worry that something like that can happen again.
Right now, I'm at a soybean farm here in Wisconsin, and farmers all across the state are facing an uncertain future as the trade war continues to intensify. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, welcome to the farm. I'm Nancy Kavazanjian. I'm a Wisconsin crop farmer. So we grow corn, soybeans, and wheat on my farm. We definitely run this farm like a small business, but it also, for us, is a way of life.
How long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been married to my husband for 38 years, so I've been farming with him for 38 years. Yeah, we're getting ready for harvest.
Wow, this is huge.
We have weather here in Wisconsin, so winter comes early, and we want the soybeans off before it snows. That's really important, so we have big machinery.
Soybeans are the #1 agricultural export from the U.S. to China, and a very important source of income for farmers here in the Midwest. Since the Trump tariffs took effect, the average price per bushel for soybeans has fallen by $2. That represents a drop of about 20% in the span of a couple months. Soybeans has fallen by $2. That Trump tariffs took effect, the average price per bushel for soybeans has fallen by $2. That represents a drop of about 20% in the span of a couple months. This is my first time in Wisconsin, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you can't leave without having cheese curds and spotted cow beer.
Okay, all right.
So most likely, everything we harvest this fall, we're gonna put in these bins and we're gonna leave them there and hope for a better market, and we hope we do get a market for them, because right now, we really don't have a market to sell our crops.
And then they're gonna stay there until the trade war ends?
Well, we hope it ends soon, right? If it doesn't, we may be selling it for a loss.
What would you want to say to President Trump right now?
I would tell him that farming and agriculture is a global business, that we cannot be protectionist. China imports 60% last year of the soybeans that we grew in this country. And that's a good thing because it helps our balance of trade. Our buyers there want to buy from us, but they're not going to because of what's going on at a higher level. I know people who probably won't be here next year to farm, and that hurts everybody because the ag industry is the basis for our rural communities here. It supports our economics here.
When global trade slows down this way, then nobody can make much money, and therefore no one can hire anybody.
So what can they do? What can the nail manufacturers or the soybean farmers do at this point?
I don't know what they can do, frankly. There are going to be more and more people who are going to be dependent on welfare.
American farmers in states like Wisconsin are a very important voting bloc for President Trump. So back in July, he approved a $12 billion aid package for farmers who have taken a financial hit since the tariffs took effect. The $12 billion that the Trump administration has set aside for farmers, what do you say to that?
I say I'd rather have the trade than the handouts.
Trade, not aid?
Trade, not aid, absolutely.
I'm a firm believer that the intentions were not to cost Mid-Continental 185 jobs that it's cost so far. A tariff that our own administration put in place just doesn't seem like the battle we need to be focusing our efforts on.
Right, so if you have finished the video, then you can see this topic right here is a very arguable topic when it comes to trade war. Yeah, right. And I think we discussed this before, 2 chapters before, right? When we were talking about trade protection, and that's why you can see in the U.S. Well, I think she was just lying. Yeah, she was just lying in front of the camera, right? But anyway, yeah, we know that U.S. has a huge trade deficit. Okay, they have a huge deficit, and that's why, right? They had this idea. But at the end, when you see the arguments, tariffs, they might not be really beneficial to the U.S. citizens. Okay, when you look at the case in the manufacturing industry and also the farming industry, you see, okay, everyone is basically suffering. Okay, and they would rather have more trade than receiving aid from the government. Okay, yeah, so that's one very good topic to make arguments and discussion, right? So we talk about more of this topic when we go to a higher level. Okay, but here, yeah, this is all you have to know, right? Okay, yeah, so that's all for this topic here. About tariffs and trade deficit. So they are connected. So now we are going to take a look of this cycle here. Well, just give it a second. Okay. Yep. All right. Okay. So take a look of this. Right. So from here, you can see the magic between exchange rates and balance of trade. Okay, so take a look at this. Oh, let's start it from this side. Okay, let's start it from the trade deficit side. So trade deficit, when M is higher than X. Okay, when M is higher than X, we import more than export. So we know that if we import more, right? So the supply of our currency will increase for sure. So we know if that happens, then depreciation increases, right? Okay, and which makes the imports more expensive. Okay, right? But the thing is, we also know that if there's a depreciation, if the depreciation keep increasing, eventually the export is going to go back up because of the depreciation, right? Because your competitiveness when it comes to exports will go back up. Okay, so you see here is the transition. When you have trade deficit, you have a situation like this, but eventually, because of depreciation, your exports will go back up. And because when your exports are going back up, there will be an increase in your currency, right? Because more people want your demand. Okay, want your goods and services. So they need to buy more of your currencies in order to get the services or get the goods, right? And here you see another transition, and that's why see the demand, okay, of your currency will go up. And when you know the demand of the currency is going up, there will be, an appreciation, okay, starting to show up. All right, and the imports, they will gradually become cheaper. Okay, and and if we keep going on, then you will see trade surplus again, right? When the exports are higher than the imports, okay, because of the transition here, okay. And yeah, it would keep going. It would keep going. When you have a trade surplus, which means that, okay, you see here, appreciation. So now if we buy imports, it's way cheaper, okay, because of the appreciation of currency, okay. But if we keep going on, all right, if our currency keeps moving upwards, then you will see our exports will become once again less competitive, right? Because the appreciation of currency. Okay, so in a transition here, the exports once again will decrease because of the appreciation. Okay, right? And if that's the case, then less people will buy your exports once again. Okay, so the demand for your currency will go down, and that will create a depreciation once again. Okay, so now, right, the imports, they become more expensive, and you go back to, okay, the trade deficit. Okay, you go back to the trade deficit because here, right, you buy more imports and your exports become more unattractive. So at the end, you go back to trade deficit, and this cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, but here, is only in one condition. It's only when you focus on just exchange rates and balance of trade. Okay? If you put other factors inside this cycle here will be broken. Okay? So if you also consider some sudden events, okay, or some government policies or some other unexpected factors, then this cycle here will be broken. But if you only focus on exchange rates and balance of trade, then you will see, a magic going on, okay, in here, right? So it's more like a self-correcting system, right? So it doesn't really matter if we are having trade deficit, because at the end, you will go back to trade surplus, and then you will go back to trade deficit. It goes on and on and on. Okay, right? So this is what you can see if you are talking about the relationship between exchange rates and balance of trade. Okay, right? Okay. So this one is very important, right? One very important concept because it links two topics together. Right. And because you see here, okay, because you see here, right? So because of this concept here, we know that trade deficit may not be a bad thing if you only focus on, these two topics, right? And you see here the growing trade deficit, may be a sign of economic expansion or recovery, right? Because after this, then you are going to experience an increase in exports. Okay, so it maybe your economy is actually recovering or is expanding after that. Okay, but the thing is, okay, this is something you always have to remember. Okay, a short-term trade deficit may be a good thing. Okay, because it will transit from this one here to here and then go back to trade surplus. But there are some cases where you are always staying in this situation. Okay, if you are having a prolonged trade deficit, okay, that will give you some very bad impact. Okay, yeah, there will be some very negative, some very bad and negative impact to the economy if you are having a very prolonged trade deficit. Okay, and the same logic goes to trade surplus. If you always stay in this situation here, there will be some negative impact. Okay, right? So either way, if you stay too long in trade deficit, it's not good. If you stay too long in trade surplus, it's not good as well. That's why you have the the government objective, having a stable balance of payment, right? Yeah, because that's the reason. Okay, so now we are going to talk about, you see, if we have a prolonged trade deficit, what will be the consequences? So take a look at this. So here you can see these are all the consequences when you are having, let's say a prolonged trade deficit. Okay, so take a look at the first one here, right? So the first one here, the first consequence, look at that. If you always have trade deficit, there will be an increasing debt to exporting countries. What does it mean? What does it mean? So yeah, you're always owing money to other countries. So if you are the exporting countries, okay, you are always owing money to other countries. Well, what does it mean? Any idea? So you can go back to the concept of trade deficit. So what is trade deficit? And yeah, and then go to this point here, right? Increasing debt to exporting countries. So you see, think about this. So now if you're having a trade deficit, which means, okay, yeah, right? So that's one key point there. Okay, so we are going to expect more money is going to flow out of the country, okay, than we received from other countries. Okay, yeah, right? And if that's the case, we go back to the concept of trade deficit. Okay, trade deficit is when the level of import is higher than the level of export. Okay, so we spend more money on import than the money received from exports. Okay, so how do we pay off the extra amount from imports? Okay, that's the question. How do we pay them off? Okay, because now we are spending more money on imports. Okay, so this is the problem. Okay, so there will be an increasing debt when you think about this. Okay, in a way. Okay, yeah, that you try to relate it to imports and exports. Okay, so now you have to think about so many different methods and approaches to pay off the import payments. Okay, so that's the consequence, right? So take a look at this. How do you pay off those debts? You might have to borrow money from other countries, because when it comes to paying off the imports, once again, you don't use your domestic currency, okay? Because you're buying goods and services from other countries, so you need foreign exchange to pay off the debts. Okay, yeah. So you actually have to borrow money from overseas in order to repay the debts. Okay, and that will give you, that will give your economy a financial burden. Okay, when that's the case, right? Okay, yeah. Yeah. So that's the problem. Okay, here, right? Okay, yeah. Or you see here from the first point, yeah. You have to supply more currency because you need to supply your currency to get some other country's currency in order to pay off debts. Okay, so there are two ways right? Yeah, either you sell more of your currency in exchange of other currencies to pay off the debts, or you just borrow money from overseas. Okay, but at the end, yeah, the financial burden for your country will be increased. Okay, and also, yeah, when you talk about the second one, right, there will be less spending on domestic businesses. So why there is a less spending on domestic businesses if there's a trade deficit? So why? Oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah. So once again, you just have to go back to the concept of trade deficit. Trade deficit is when your imports are higher than exports. If that's the case, which means people they spend more money on imports. Okay, yeah, rather than people they engage in the exporting businesses. So that means for the exporting businesses from the domestic environment, okay, there will be less jobs, there will be less production. So at the end, okay, no one is going to spend money on the domestic businesses. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so once again, you just have to go back to the concept here. Okay, the concept of trade deficit. All right. So here, so take a look at this. Right. You just spend too much money on imports because now we are talking about trade deficit. Okay. And at the end, see, you don't need the local goods and services anymore. Right. So to those businesses, the output going down, and they don't need the workers anymore. So right, there will be more unemployment. Okay, so yeah, so that's the second point of the consequence from trade deficit, and yeah, and here, so this one here is quite obvious. Okay, yeah, you will see a fall in value of the currency, and if that happens, you know the consequence. Okay, when you are getting the imports, it's way more expensive. Okay, because during the trade deficit we know that because the supply of the currency, okay, is a lot because we want to buy more imports. So your currency is going to depreciate in that case, right? And that's why this is also one of the consequences. Okay, yep. So when you are getting imports, they become more expensive. Okay, right. So here is another one, right? Okay, and yeah, so the explanation here is just what I said just now. Okay, and yeah, and below this another point here. Yeah, I also talked about that just now, right? And that's why, see, because of the fall in value of the currency, the imports they become more expensive. Okay, yeah, and yeah, right, because of that. Okay, because of that. Okay, right. So yeah. So for the last 2 points here, you can just go back to the cycle here, okay, to get yourself understand the concept, right? Because when when m is higher than x, then we can expect we need more foreign currency for the imports. Okay, so there should be a higher supply in our currency, and that's why you will see a depreciation in our currency. Okay, right? All right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So here, when it comes to a trade deficit, we just have to focus on a few points. Okay. So there will be increasing debts, and also there will be some negative impact to our local businesses. Okay, because we spend so much money on imports, and because of trade deficit, we are going to expect the currency is going to be depreciating a lot. Okay, and that is not good for imports. Okay, because we have to spend much more money for the imports afterwards. Okay, right? All right. Okay, so that's the consequences we can see from trade deficit. Trade deficit. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. And So now you know here, there are so many consequences from trade deficit when we have a prolonged trade deficit. So how do we fix that? So here I have a set of solutions, or you can say, yeah, they are the correcting methods. Okay, so first of all here, doing nothing. Why? So why is that? So why should we do nothing to correct the trade deficit? Yeah, it will go in a loop. Yeah, the cycle, right? Yeah. If you don't, include other factors inside that, then you will be, okay, self-correcting yourself, right? So you see here, the currency value go down, and then the imports become very very expensive. So you don't want to import anymore, and the goods, they become more competitive. So that's why your export revenues might go up again. So here you have a self-correcting system over there. So number one, you just have to do nothing. Just do nothing, right? Based on the cycle we just saw. And what about fiscal policy? What kind of fiscal policy would you use to correct trade deficit? What do you think? Yeah, we only have two kinds, like expansionary and contractionary. So which one do you think will help reducing trade deficit? Contractionary. Reason? Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, less spending on goods, right? So here, once again, you go back to the concept of trade deficit. So trade deficit is when M is higher than X. Okay, when you are able to, have higher incomes, then you buy more imports. Okay, that's the assumption we always make. Okay, when you have a higher income level, then you buy more imports, and that's why right now, if you are the government and you are experiencing trade deficit, you want to control. Okay, you want to control the level of imports. Okay, and if you can reduce the level of income from your citizens, then you can do that, right? And that's why contractionary fiscal policy, that's one method to control that. Okay, because if you use contractionary policies, then okay, people, they are going to earn less, and they will spend less on the imports, so the trade deficit will go down. Okay, so right, and we only have two options: either working from the tax, okay, or we work on the government spending. Okay, so more tax or less government spending. Okay, and at the end, you will see the import should be lower because of that. Okay, what about interest rate? Interest rate is part of some policy. What's the name of that policy? So if we are monetary policy. Okay, so when we are using monetary policy, focusing on interest rate, should we increase the interest rate, or should we decrease the interest rate in order to correct trade deficit? Increase it, right? So the same logic here. Okay, we are using contractionary monetary policy. Okay, to reduce people from consuming the imported goods. Okay, yep. So here, right? Yeah, just like that. Okay, and what about supply side policies? What do you think? Supply side policies. Should we increase the supply side policies, or should we decrease supply side policy when we are trying to correct trade deficit? Increase. Okay, yeah, that is good, right? So think about this. Supply side policy, it helps the increase of supply, the domestic supply. Okay, if we increase the supply side policies, okay, think about it using this demand and supply diagram. Okay, the price is going to go down. Okay, and which will make your product more competitive when it comes to exports. Okay, so that's why you are going to increase the supply side policy, because you want to reduce the domestic businesses' production costs. And at the end, if you can do that, the competitiveness will go up, so which will help your exports. Okay, so yeah, when your exports are going up, then the trade deficit will go down, right? So you either reduce the import or you increase the exports, right? So that's the concept. Okay, so that's the concept here. And for the last one, trade barrier, well, we just watched that video, so we know, okay, what that is. Okay, we are trying to use something like tariffs to reduce imports. So here, I'm just going to show you right away, right? Yeah, just like what Trump is doing. Okay, just like that, to discourage imports. Because now, if other countries they are exporting goods to your country, they have to pay a higher price. Okay, and yeah, they have to pay a higher price, so they will set a higher price for the products, and at the end, the imports, they will become less attractive. Okay, yeah, so there will be less imports. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the policies a government can use to reduce trade deficit. Okay, yeah. So here, right, always think about the demand side policies and always think about the supply side policies. Okay, and also trade protection. Right. So yeah. So 3 items in your pocket: the policies, trade protection, and yeah, and the first one there, well, you can use that too. You just do nothing. But in the reality, the first one always does not work. Okay, because there are so many other factors affecting the situation. Okay, right? So right. So the cycle you just saw is just an ideology. Right? Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Okay. So here it's done. Okay. So we talk about the consequences of trade deficit, and then now we know how to correct the trade deficit. Okay. But like 10 minutes ago, I told you that not only when you have trade deficit, there will be some negative impact. When you are experiencing a prolonged trade surplus, there will be some consequences too. Okay, so here, the causes of trade surplus, very simple. Okay, so the concept of trade surplus. Can someone tell me? Can someone tell me the concept of trade surplus? When will that happen? Trade surplus. So when will trade surplus happen? Right, X is higher than M, right? That's it. So now you can expect when you are having a trade surplus, you have so much export revenue, okay? And you don't buy much of import goods and services. Okay, yeah, so that's the concept. And here, right? Yeah, so how do you get so much export revenue? It's because there's a huge demand for your exported goods and services. Okay, right? And that's why, at the end, X is higher than M. Okay? Yeah. It might imply that you have a very competitive pricing when it comes to exports. And that's why people, they want to buy your goods, because your goods are very attractive. Okay? Yeah. And so now, yeah, you can take a look of the consequences, right? See, trade surplus is not a good thing, okay, when there is a persistent trade surplus. Okay, so take a look of this, right? So there will be some political or economic pressure on the government from other countries. Okay, with trade deficit, the U.S., that's one of them, right? Because when you think about China, China has a very good trade surplus, and it has been, going on for so many years. Okay, and yeah, as a trade partner of China, so the U.S., they are not satisfied with that result, so they gave them some political and economic pressures. Okay, right. So the different protectionist measures, you see, they are the pressures to those countries with trade surplus. Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, and when you talk about England, yeah, the UK, you can use this topic as well. Okay, you can use this topic to facilitate your thinking, right? When it comes to a Brexit, okay, when it comes to Brexit, uh, you know, yeah. So many different concepts that you can use from this topic here. You can talk about exchange rate. You can talk about the balance of payment. You can talk about the trade protection. Yeah, a lot. Okay, a lot. So the U.S. and China trade war is just one of them. Okay, yeah. And yeah. So and the second one. Okay, here, if you are exporting so much. Okay, so think about this. See, it's like like let's make a very extreme case. Like 90% of your goods, of your domestic produced goods and services, they are all going to overseas. Then what about your local consumption? Okay, so most of your goods they have been sent to overseas. So it's not good for your domestic consumption. Okay, it's not good for the domestic society, right? So that's one bad thing you will see when it comes to trade surplus. When we have a prolonged trade surplus, okay, it affects our domestic consumption, okay, because we are selling so much goods and services to overseas, okay. So no one here in the domestic area they can enjoy our goods and services, okay. Yeah, and also, right, when you have so much export revenues, then of course you are going to expect there will be some demand pull inflation, right? Because the people, when you have a much higher X, okay, which means people they're earning higher incomes, okay, so they are going to consume much more, right? And when that happens, then you see there will be demand pull inflation, okay, right? That's not good, yeah, because when we talk about inflation, we want to have it in a more stable level, right? And when you also think about the flow, okay, the cycle again, right? Because of trade surplus, eventually your currency is going to be going up very quickly. So it's going to appreciate very quickly. Okay? And we know that in general, when you are having appreciation, your exports will become less competitive. Yeah, at the end. Okay? Right? So, that is also one argument that we can make. Okay? So, if that's the case, if there's appreciation, right? Your goods become more expensive. So the demand, okay, of the local currency, right? For your local currency, okay, yeah. Uh, well, here I think I wait a second. Well, there's a typo. Yeah, should be decreases. Okay, should be decreases. Well, I'll change it later. Okay, yeah. So at the end, when you have a huge appreciation, okay, so other countries they don't want to buy your products anymore because when they buy your products, they're too expensive. Okay, yeah. So that's why at the end, if you have trade surplus, it might not be good. Okay, it might not be good when it comes to the exporting industry. Okay, right. So yeah. So So now we have learned about both of the scenarios, the consequences of trade surplus, and also the consequences of trade deficit. Okay, yeah. Of course, there will be some policies to correct this situation here. Okay, yeah. Wait, Jesse, are you talking about this? Yeah, are you talking about this one here? No, I think I have a typo here. I have a typo here. Yeah. So the demand for the local currency should decrease. Okay, right? Because now it becomes more expensive from other countries. Okay, so they don't want to get more of your currency, because right, when they want to buy your goods, they have to buy your currency first. Okay, yeah, so there's a typo. I'll change it. Okay, so when it comes to the policies to correct trade surplus, it's very simple. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna do any more discussion here. Okay, besides doing nothing, okay, you are going to use the same policies and the same protectionist measures, okay, in order to correct this. But in one condition, you are going to reverse what you do to correct trade deficit. Okay, yep. So everything that you do here to reduce trade deficit, you are going to turn them upside down. Okay, if you can do that, then you are correcting trade surplus. Okay, you are correcting trade surplus, right? So here, yeah, it's more efficient to do it this way. So you just have to remember one side. Okay, so after that, yeah, you just have to make it the opposite when the question is asking for how to correct trade surplus. Okay, all right. Okay, so yeah, so the items here, they're the same. They're exactly the same. You just have to reverse what you do to correct trade deficit. Okay, yeah, is that clear? Right? Okay, yeah. So yeah, so right. Okay, so let's have a very quick recap. Yeah, talking about trade deficit. So once again, what's the concept of trade deficit? So when can we see a trade deficit? Trade deficit. What's the concept of it? Trade deficit. Come on, guys. Yeah, right. Yeah, thank you. Right, M is higher than X. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If that's the case, right. So how do we do it? How do we do it? In general, how do we do it? In general, so what should we reduce? Should we reduce the export or should we reduce the import? Right, or increase the export. Okay, yeah. So in general, you just have to think about it in this way. Okay, so we have to do something to reduce the import or to increase the export. Right? Okay, so here increase the export or and reduce the import. Okay, so that's all. Okay, that is all. Right, that's all. There's no more. Okay, yeah, you see here, you see here the screen. It's all black. Okay, that's all. That's all for everything. Okay, thank you guys. You have finished the entire curriculum. That's all. All right, guys. Yeah, no more. Okay, so yeah, finally. Okay, yeah, no more. Okay, right. Okay, yeah. Wow, finally I've done our job. Yeah, done it. Okay, right, I'm out. Okay, yeah, see you guys. Okay, Kahoot. Um, okay, wow, Vector is really out. No, I'm. Hey, no. Yeah, I need to open a champagne for that. Yeah. So yes, so this is for real. Okay, no more. Okay, this is the final page. All right, of the final chapter. That's all. Okay. So here, once again, a very quick recap for the very last chapter. We learn about, you see, the last government objective. Okay, so which is having balance of payment stability. Okay, and we focus on current account. Okay, current account, and you see here, in the current account, we talk about the 4 items, right? Trading goods, services, right? Income flows and current transfers. They are, all about money inflow and outflow. Okay, right? And yeah, so we talk about different causes of a trade deficit, and then we see the magic. Okay, the magic cycle about exchange rates and balance of trade. Yeah, and then we talk about the consequences when we have a prolonged trade deficit, and also some methods that we can do to correct trade deficits. Okay, right? And at the end, yeah, we also have another set of scenario where we have trade surplus, and there will be some consequences when it comes to trade surplus, and we just have to use the same set of items to correct them. Okay, but we just have to reverse what we did for correcting trade deficit when it comes to correcting trade surplus. So yeah, so that's all for the curriculum, and yeah, unfortunately we cannot celebrate here, right? Usually if we are at school, okay, like in the very last day, I'll buy you guys some food. Yeah, I'll buy you guys some food. Okay, but well, yeah, but now you see, we at home, so cannot do that. So thank you for that. So I don't have to spend much more money. Okay, usually I buy cakes, right? Because we have afternoon classes, and I don't think you want to have another bucket of KFC chickens. Yeah, so like desserts and everything. But yeah, but now you see here, you are staying at home. Well, too bad. Food Panda. Well, no, 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 no. Food Panda. No, 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 no. Oh, that's true. That's true. You still have to go back to school for exams. Well, maybe. Well, Ryan. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. I haven't yeah, I haven't gone to work out for 2 months already. Okay, because the gyms are closed. Well, too bad. Well, anyway, hopefully, yeah, when we come back to school, I can treat you some dessert, maybe. Okay, so yeah, all right. So in the meantime, keep working on your revisions. Okay. Well, I do train my legs. Okay, they just don't grow. That's the fact. All right. I am sure. I am sure. Yeah. Okay. I can jump much higher than you do. All right. Okay. Well, anyway. Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. All right. I will try to make a Kahoot very soon. Okay, because it takes time, and look, I still have a pile of mock exam I have to correct, and also some IA from the year 12s. So it's going to be a busy, busy, busy. All right. Well, it's 2 o'clock already. Okay. I'll let you go. All right. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Okay. And I'm going to make some announcement. In the weekend. Okay, telling you what we are going to do. Next week. Okay, because there will be some revisions. All right. Okay. So yeah. So bye guys. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.